Good morning. We're on page 143 in the Maamar Zochor. We've been learning some beautiful, wonderful Chassidus psychological aspects of Chassidus. I was thinking about it. If you ask a psychologist, if he heard our shiur in the last few weeks, he would say, what does it have to do with Chassidus? It's psychology. The truth is that Chassidus, like I always say, is the best psychology. The best psychology is Chassidus. If we learn Chassidus and you understand Chassidus and you live with Chassidus, you're the best psychologist. So the Frierdiker Rebbe here in this Maamar, he seeks to tackle the idea of Amalek. You know, it's already other Rishon, as we all know, and we're encroaching on Zion other Rishon, the Yotzer of Moshe Rabbeinu, which we keep. And then we have Purim Katan, which we'll speak a little bit about in Hashem when we get to that day. And then we have the following month, Purim. So it's the Purim season, you could say. So the Rebbe in this Purim Maamar, which he said in Riga in 1934, not exactly a bastion of Hasidic Judaism. Nevertheless, he seeks to inspire, you might say, the very regulated Yekes, okay? This wasn't really Litvak town, it was Yekka town. And the Rebbe seeks to, in a sense, bring in Warmkeit, warmth, Chassidishkeit, movement into the entire area, not just those listening to the Maamar. But we have the Maamar and we learned the Maamar, so it applies to us and everyone else as well. And what is his Nekuda? His Nekuda is that when it says Zochor it seems to imply that the issue is that Amalek had the audacity, the chutzpah, to attack us baderech, Mitzrayim. We just experienced Yitzias Mitzrayim. We just experienced Yitzias Mitzrayim and Kriyas Yamsuf. You would think that all the non-Jews and all the nations and everyone would be humbled before the Jews and would be thankful to the Jews. And I'm thinking about it like in Eretz Yisrael. The whole world should be praising and lauding Eretz Yisrael for doing what it's done the last 70 years or so, whatever. It's amazing. It's amazing. Which other country could show what the leaders in technology, the leaders in medicine, in so many fields, you should be taking Eretz Yisrael and putting it on a pedestal and showing it for the whole world. You want to see an example of how from nothing you can create something? Look at them. And instead, we have every day another issue and another. Here, one of the last issues is someone who actually was known to be close, I think, to the Jewish community. I think she grew up in Brooklyn. I don't want to mention her name in a holy class like this. And she goes and mistakenly makes a comment about the Holocaust. So they put her on a 2-week suspension from ABC. Wow. Oh, so instead of her making $5 million a year, she's making $4,800,000. What a punishment, really. What does it tell you? It tells you what Rashi says. What Rashi says, which when you learn the Rashi, it's hard to swallow. Haloi soina Esav leYaakov. Esav hates Yaakov. Hates Yaakov? Well, hate comes in different forms. So many times it's disguised. And it comes out when you just say, oh, some of my best friends are Jews, you know, and like. So there's nowhere to go, my friends. We are who we are, and we need to be proud of it, and we stand up with it. And if someone doesn't like it, fly a kite, and we go further. And the truth is that the stronger you are, and the more open you are with your Yiddishkeit, with your beard, with your yarmulke, with your payas, with whatever you believe in, and you go and you say, this is who I am, they respect you more. And this is true also from within. When you start cutting corners and you start capitulating, and you start, making changes in your display of Yiddishkeit because some others have issues, and you start giving in to them, you've lost the plot and you've lost the game and you'll be finished. You need to stand strong. And those that don't understand, don't understand. If they want to understand, they'll understand. And at the end, they'll say, this person stood up for what he believed, and this person has a message. Maybe it's not what I agree with. Maybe it's not what I like. Maybe it's not my shita. But this person definitely believes in something. I remind myself to support that the previous Rebbe grandson, Barry Garari, Shalom Ber Garari, he wrote in his manifesto that he wrote, which was never printed, and he writes there that about his grandfather, our author, the previous Rebbe. He says, whether you agreed with my grandfather or you disagreed, one thing for sure, you couldn't ignore him. I love that line. I remember the line. You could disagree with him, but you can't ignore him, because you know that he is, as we say in Hebrew, a bar samcha. He's a somebody. He's someone to be reckoned with. And the same is with every one of us. We need to develop a connection with Hashem, that we are something in the sense that we represent HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You might disagree with me and not agree with me, but nevertheless, you won't ignore me. You understand? And that's very important, and that's healthy self-esteem, and we need to teach this to the children and grandchildren. You need to know that in life, people are going to disagree with you. There are going to be people that don't like you. Nevertheless, if you're an honorable person, they won't ignore you. You know, I told you this also when I was a 17, 18-year-old bocher and doing the Mivtzoyim on 5th Avenue and 47th Street with the mitzvah tanks in Manhattan, and I was asking men if they would like to put on tefillin, and women if they want to, light Shabbos candles, etc. It's called the Mivtzoyim, the outreach. And there were two types of people that passed by. You understand? It's 1 o'clock on a weekday in Manhattan. There are thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of people walking back and forth. One group of people would ignore me. They were Jewish, but they would ignore me. The other group of people would say, leave me alone, I don't have no time for you. Stop with your antiquated, mitzvahs and stuff. Get with it, get a job and make a living. And who's closer? Who's further from Torah and mitzvahs, from Frumkeit? The one that says it's all antiquated and ridiculous, or the one that ignores you? The answer is the one that ignores you. The one that makes a comment, a negative comment, there's something in him that's bothering him, and therefore he shoots out. The person that don't give a hoot because they're really distant is the person who just looks at you, can even smile at you, and really stabbing a knife in your back, and he just ignores you. Ignoring a person is the worst thing. I always say with my WhatsApps and then texting and then emails, all I want of you is just to acknowledge that you got it. 1K. You don't have to do more than just hit a K. And that little K tells me you didn't ignore me. It doesn't mean you agree with me. It doesn't mean you like what I wrote. But at least you're giving me the decent, basic derech eretz that when I took the time to write to you, you wrote, I got it. And I know they say today, well, it's automatic because you see 1 check and 2 checks and all that stuff in the WhatsApp. Forget about the checks, 1 or 2. Just take a second. Show that you care a little bit and write K. The Rebbe spoke about this Nakuda too, by the way. The Rebbe spoke about it in the terms of what's called, Yoni, Etzba Ktana. Your little pinky, your little finger. Apply yourself just with a little pinky and a little finger. Show you care. And you know how much we would do for human relations if we improved in this area and if people improved? It would be so much more loving and togetherness. When you ignore someone, it's the worst thing. I remind myself of another sikha of the previous Rebbe, where he says this is a wonderful thing to remember. He says sometimes just with the Yiddish, the word is krum, or in the Hungarian Yiddish, krim. Krim means with the twist. Just with the krim of the nose, you could kill someone. What does it say in the Torah? Ki be'apom hargu ish. Shimon and Levi, right? Shimon and Levi in Vayechi. With their anger, Moshe, remember this, because you're a Gabba, you need to have these quick liners to zap the guys that come and attack you. So here's a good one. Ki be'apom. Shimon and Levi, with their anger, harguish, they went and killed people, right? It's a pasuk in Vayechi with Rashi over there. So there's a famous saying that I forget to who it's attributed to. Ki be'apom. The word apom also comes from the word af, nose. Ki be'apom. Sometimes only through your nose you could kill a person. Hargu ish. Sometimes someone says, so-and-so, he did this and this, and you go, You made a little movement with your nose to the right or to the left. Harguish! In Yiddish, the krim, the twist of the nose can kill a person. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to do anything. You discounted the person right there and then. And so the person who sees that says, I got it. And he has a negative opinion of that other person. Kibi apam hargu ish. So I'm reminded of that teaching, kibi apam hargu ish, when we talk about ignoring someone. Ignoring is also an apam. All you didn't do anything. I just didn't answer your email. I just didn't acknowledge your WhatsApp or your text or your phone call. That is hargu ish. That ignoring the person shows that the person in your eyes is valuable, is not valuable, is not important. And these inyanim that we're discussing here are part of this Maamar. And that's why the Rebbe says, Asher karcha baderech. He focuses in on Amalek attacking the Jewish people when they were baderech. What does baderech mean? On the road. The Rebbe says, what does that mean? Why are we highlighting the road, the way, the path? We don't know yet. We'll wait to see what the Rebbe says at the end of the Maamar. But that was his first question. His second question is, and from the pasuk, what's the antidote to avoid the issue of Amalek vis-a-vis attacking us baderech? It is Zochor. Remember. Not blow a shofar, not learn Torah, not do mitzvahs, a new idea. Zochor, memory. Remembering Amalek, that in and of itself is the antidote to karcha baderech. So the Rebbe's second question is, what does that mean? What is it? What does that mean? So that's what he began the mind with, but as I told you many times, he goes away, seemingly, in a different direction, talking about these character issues, because he's exploring what is Amalek. Before you could talk about Asher Karcha Baderech, who is Karcha Baderech, Yonason? Who? Amalek. Amalek is Karcha Baderech. What is Amalek? So he speaks about the apathy, he speaks about no sensitivity to godliness, because of a lack of his boyness. This is Chassidus. So that the entire body of the Maamar is Chassidus. Concept of meditation. We also learned another concept last week, which was fascinating. The concept of the goodness of the Nefesh Abamis. Another new idea that we explored. So now we will continue this idea. Let's go. Bottom of page 143. The Rebbe said, I have taken lots of your time and explained to you what we need to do when it comes to dealing with ugly character. The in a nutshell, their idea of the idea of ugly character is to conceal that godliness should not be palpable and felt in one's soul. Next page, 144. It's through the Nefesh Abam is drawing a person in to worldly matters, as we said before, indulgences, and we spoke a lot about Shamta, Avisa, Kosisa, etc. Avol, however, when one exerts themselves, girdles their loin, that's my expression, and they start doing in the service actively of study Torah and davening, dedicating oneself to spirituality, the nesina zu atzma. This very dedication, the fact that he gives himself over completely to spirituality, matik oisoim minagashmias, that itself removes him from the material, the physical. And it says in Yiddish, Moshe, that ibergeben sich, ibergetting means to give yourself over. The giving of oneself over. So ruchnius, raised him up, it tears him away from Gashmias. So the first step is, Avram, there has to be distancing yourself from Gashmias. That's the first step. In other words, here is the example, Yoini. You're going to have the cholt and the kishka, but don't rush. Let others take it before you. And guess what? Let it not be boiling hot. It'll be just hot. So you have just distanced yourself a little bit from the Gashmias. Then you'll eat the cholt. It still will be warm. But that taiva, that bren, we say in Yiddish, that bren, that passion that I must have, the first person after the Kaddish or before the Kaddish to run to the cholt, and it has to be boiling, and it has to you severed that. You cut that out. Because you held yourself back and you let other people go first. When you do that, look what the Rebbe says further. So that separates you from the corporeality. So we have two things here, Chevra. Gashmias and Chumrias. And it's important because this will come up in many Maimorim. Gashmias is material, physicality, right? And Chumrias is the corporeality of it, the grubkeit, the coarseness of it. That's Chumrias. So the Rebbe says, when you distance yourself from the Gashmias, that will separate you from the Chumrias. And now he says in Yiddish, As Chumrias werd bei ihm abgefleckt legamri. You know what that distancing will do? That corporeality will be not acceptable whatsoever. So in other words, the Gashmias is still acceptable to you. You're going to eat the chont. No question about it. And you're going to enjoy the chont. However, that passion, like the animalistic passion and craving, if you train yourself to not jump and step back, that no longer will be an issue for you. The grubkeit, he says, as Chumris werd bei him abgefragt legamri. The word abgefragt means, frage means to ask. The expression means it will be something that is totally not acceptable. That's the English translation.
Rabbi,
yes.
Rabbi,
yes.
Rabbi, is this the same idea we learned a couple of years ago about when you have a portion of food in front of you, you're supposed to put it to the side. You're not supposed to eat, like if your wife gives you a dinner, a steak dinner, you're not supposed to eat it right away. You're supposed to push it and then wait 5 minutes. Is that the same thing?
But not in the technical terms. If you don't push it aside, that you just sit there and you don't jump at it, it's just like pushing it aside. So I don't want you to walk away thinking, Rabbi Dolphin said, or we learned in a Maamar, there's a mitzvah, you have to physically push it aside. Chabad doesn't work that way. It's not Chabad. Musar will do that. Chabad doesn't say, Chabad means the idea, whether you push it aside or whether it's in front of your face, but you sit there and you're talking Torah, or you're singing niggin, or you're just sitting back, that's the concept. And by the way, that's a Gemara. It's a Gemara in Brachos, I believe. The Alter Rebbe brings it in Tanya, but it's a Gemara. Yes, Yonis.
Chumriya comes from the word chamor, donkey.
Yes.
And the donkey has got two characteristics. Number one, even in the summer, he's very cold. And the second one is that it's very difficult to get him to move.
To get into what?
To get him to move. He doesn't want to move.
Right, he's lazy.
Right. So the chumriya, the coarseness of physicality makes us cold towards things that are godly. And also, we don't want to move. We want to stay where we are and just be happy.
Correct. Thank you. So look what the Rebbe says now. Yes, Moshe. Yeah.
When you're going back to what Yoni was asking about just now, it's interesting, like, just to take what you said, I find that the more Chassidus a person learns, right, there's such a focus on refinement of a person's character, and especially Dafka, this example about the cholent, about the food, it's like, no, it's not. There's nothing wrong with having the food. There's nothing wrong with having the cholent. There's nothing wrong with having the kishke, the herring, the kugel, whatever, the lechaims. But it's that point about not like rushing that you have to have it. Now it's like taking a moment and like putting it in perspective.
Yes. I mean, Yoni was being very, graphic and good in a good way. How do you do it? So, and the answer is, like the Gemara says, hold back. Talmidei Chachamim, they would refrain right away from the food that was in front of them. They held back. So it's the mindset. Whether you have to push it aside or not push it aside, that's a technicality. That really depends. For one person, 1 second, Avram. For one person, not having the taiva in front of him, that's the way he has an easier time dealing with it. Another person can have it in front of him, but if he can do the time out, stop, think, relax, chill, he'll also accomplish that. Yes, Avram, I'm glad you're speaking. I want to hear from you, Avram.
I was saying that's the first step in restraining from jumping into it. The next step is not to overindulge in it.
Yes, but
and once you're doing it, indulge in it. Don't drink too many l'chaim. Don't eat too much food.
So the Rebbe is saying here that if you succeed in the first point, it will help you succeed better in the second point. You will eat differently. You won't eat as much. You won't drink as much. You won't gossip as much. So the first thing you have to do is you have to distance yourself from Gashmias. And when you distance yourself from Gashmias, it lessens the coarsening that you have towards it, which is the Chumrias. That's exactly what he's saying. Let me just say the inside next point. He says it in Yiddish. Afilu Gashmias werd bei ihm euch in dem afilu werd bei ihm euch on dem Geschmack. This means, and when you do this process as we discussed, then even the Gashmias, the basic Gashmias, will lose its appeal, its Geschmack. So if you're wondering whether Chabad supports Geschmack in food and in sleep, the answer is no. The problem is the Geschmack of a person's tainug should be in godliness. Now, if you find godliness in food, kol hakavod. But you really have to be an honest person. That's what we discussed last time. You're drawing the art. And if the art is something that maybe is not 100% tznius, are you really doing it because this is an expression of art and you really are totally not moved by the non-sneers art, or you are moved by that image, but you're convincing yourself that it's because of art. And only the artist can answer that. No one can answer that. So, I remember with Tanchum Olav Shalom, and his wife's grandfather, we had these discussions briefly, and I was a bacher, and he showed me some pictures that I looked the other way, and he said, you don't appreciate fine art. Who am I to answer? In my books, this wasn't acceptable because that's not what I was raised with. But he's an artist, so I'm not going to go judge him. It definitely didn't feel that way, but I could be totally wrong because I'm not in that world. And the same is true in every issue of life. To discern between eating something with geschmack, with pleasure, and it's holy and godly versus it's not, only the person can decide. And that's what Avram mentioned the other day. Eating Shabbos is tainug. It's the same answer, Avram. Are you eating it because when you eat it, do you really feel? Are you really in a place where you're doing it because it's Shabbos, or you're eating it because you want the pleasure? And you would do the same thing on Monday and Tuesday. And if the answer is you would do one second. And if the answer is that you do the same thing on Monday and Tuesday, then you're not eating in a Shabbos because of Tainuk Shabbos. You're eating it because you want a pleasure. Yes, Moshe.
Oh, that explains perfectly why is it that when we have that cholent, let's say if it's maybe some people can have cholent Friday night,
whatever,
tastes amazing. Shabbos day tastes amazing. Then what happens? Motzei Shabbos, maybe you want to have some. Nobody wants. Sunday night, nobody wants it. It's like
okay.
I'm saying that. Why am I saying that? Because we know it's. I don't know what the makor is, but the food, Shabbos food on Shabbos, it has a certain taste. It has a certain time that during the week often it doesn't have necessarily.
Okay, but can you honestly say can you honestly say that that's true? That that's true? That you have tasted the difference between hot shont on a Thursday night versus hot shont on a Shabbos afternoon?
For sure. Well, okay. Well, Thursday night doesn't count because Thursday night doesn't count because
it's a very Shabbos. It's a very Shabbos.
He goes to Kiddush. That's what most knows. Exactly. The best cholent in Beit Shemesh Thursday night is called Kiddush. There's a place in Gimel.
Oh,
it's
okay.
The best cholent.
Okay.
But yeah, for sure. Sunday night, there's no question.
Right.
There's question.
Yeah. I know what you're saying. Sometimes I tell my wife she has leftover a lot of children, leave it for Sunday and Monday, and it's not the same. You're right. But the Nakud everyone understands. The point everyone gets. Let's continue. Afilu gashuv yet keep binisinose yelaruchnius, and the Rebbe says, why is it that the result will be such a positive, good one? Because when you dedicate yourself to ruchnius, in levad zois asher avidosoi bibirur v'zichuch midaisav bichlal, in addition to you working and refining your character, correcting also your particular deficiencies, every person has a particular deficiency. Whether it be in intellect, whether it be in the heart issues, emotional issues, or the gilus royim, and we have deficiencies of bad habits. So when we dedicate ourselves to spirituality, then we gradually do a work, and we make our heart be attentive, and that causes that these issues slowly dissipate. They're not so bothersome. I'm talking about, he says here, everyone has a particular deficiency. Whenever I call a reference for a shidduch for my daughters, the last question that I end the conversation with usually is the following, and it always throws them off. Tell me one deficiency that this Zochor has.
Yeah, Mom, what do you put in the oven?
So most will tell you, no, he's my friend, I can't do that. And some will say, they've said it to me, I never had that question asked. That's a good question. I said, yeah, I'd like you to tell me, and it's not gossip. Just tell me, which area is he weak in? Because we're all weak in a certain area. And then I've gotten answers. And then you see. In other words, the shidduch, hearing all good things is great, right? But when you have to live with a person, you have to live with their deficiencies. And if you don't know what the deficiency is, and then one day it comes up, and then you're lost. So you have to know l'chatchila what's their area of weakness, and can I handle it? And in my humble opinion, if you say no, you shouldn't marry them. No one's perfect. So the question is, not the two things that we have in common that we could live with and we like within each other. Can we live and love each other and care for each other with the negatives that we have? Because we both have negatives. We're not perfect. And if you can answer yes to that, then I think you're on a healthier path in a shidduch and in a marriage. I don't know what you guys think, but that's my thinking. Yes, Yaini.
Okay, so this is a question that I was discussing this with my wife today, actually.
Yes.
When we talk about deficiencies, I from personal experience, I know it's when in Yiddish farblunge, I keep farblunging in the same thing over and over again. Meaning, like, if that's what you're talking about, like a deficiency, there's one item in my life that I always feel like I'm constantly making the same mistake over and over again. Is that what you're referring to, or you're referring to something of a different realm?
I'm referring to that. Yeah, I am referring to that. What I was referring to it in the case of a marriage, but yeah, and what I'm saying is rather that the way to succeed is to embrace the deficiency. And someone just asked me that this Sunday, what you just brought up. What does Chassidus say about this issue? And I told him that the Rebbe Rashab writes it in Kuntres Avoda, and he quotes it from the Arizal. And the Arizal says that when a person sees throughout their lifetime a certain area, exactly what you're, I think, saying that you failed in, let's say friends. You look at your childhood and you always got into fights, brawl. You became a young teenager, a mid-teenager, and again, became a young adult. You never could really hold friends, and there was always issues and gossip and this and that. You have a weakness in making friends, in keeping friends. Now you're 35, 40 years old, whatever. What do you say? Do you say, I'm weak in this area, so let me forget about trying to make friends? Because I failed once, twice, 3 times. 3 strikes and you're out. Or do you say, from on high, my neshama is telling me that this area is what I need to correct while I'm alive. And the Arizal HaKodesh, the Holy Arizal says it's the latter, what I just said. This is a sign from on high that this is something that needs tikkun, and only you can correct it. And the fact that you failed once, twice, 3 times is not an excuse. You're not out. On the contrary, your neshama is saying, hey, I need you. I need your help. Please help me. And if you endeavor, one day you'll succeed. Now, this doesn't mean to say that you shouldn't learn from your mistakes. You have to learn from your mistakes. So if you look at the pattern of the past and you use it presently, and you have guides, limitations, direction of how to use it, because you're smarter and older, so you won't make the mistakes of childhood and teenagehood and young adulthood, you'll be a very, very, you'll accomplish. You'll accomplish. You know why? Because you'll know in certain time to certain people to be quiet. Because when you recognize a difficult person, it used to be in the past, you used to curse him out and fight with him and all that. And now, I spoke about ignoring. Sometimes you have to ignore. In other words, just, go do what you have to. And you see this constantly in shul. Moshe, in shul, the shul. Constantly. You got hard people. This morning, another person from the Nate's Minyan is not here. The man has been here, as far as I know, 10, 15 years. What happened? He got upset. Someone said something about the heat, because in the Shlomo Shabbat Shul on 53rd and 13th, it's in a basement, the basement floor. So there's the regulated heat from the vents upstairs don't come downstairs somehow. So they put in new heaters and air conditioners, and it really makes it hot there. Because some people are so cold, they have to have it, and other people are not. And it's a balagan. I noticed people left. And now this guy left. So the guy by Moshe Metzger, I don't know if you know Yoni, he mamish, he's like freaking out. This is the man that comes at 5 in the morning every day, says it still and learns Mishnayos. He is the staple of the minyan. He's not here the last 3 days. So Moshe's freaking out. So he finds out from a guy who happens to be Sephardic, and he tells him that he said something to him, which obviously he didn't like, and he checked out. That's what he said. And he says, I'm sorry, I didn't mean anything. So what's my point? My point is, in Yiddish, there's an expression, schwere Menschen. You've heard that expression. Difficult people. The truth is, we all have a difficult person in ourselves. For one guy, it's the air conditioner. For one guy, it's the heat. For one guy, spitting aleinu. For one guy, it's the rabbi. For one guy, it's the gabbai. For one guy, it's not getting an aliyah. For one guy, it's why are you giving him an aliyah? And it goes on and on. We have Mr. Gabbai right here. He can tell us all about it. 20 plus years of doing this thing, right? You're never going to make everyone happy. So sometimes, what's the best answer? The answer is to just let them be, and so you learn from your past. I thought about this, over the years on shlichus. There were two types of shluchim, like CEOs. One was one that was able to manage other shluchim under him. And you give a look at their pedigree, by and large, they haven't fired too many people. We're talking about 30, 40, 50 years. And then there are others that every other day there's a fight and a firing, and it's a balagan. It's crystal clear. One is good at delegating, and one is a disaster at delegating. And to me, you have to realize your strengths and your weaknesses. And when you do, then you'll be better all around. And that's my answer to you and your wife's discussion. You have to know what deficiencies are, but not to say, because I failed in this area, therefore I give up. No, because what I'm showing you from the Arizal, sharing with you, is that's a call from on high. At the same time, you have to be smart about it. The Arizal doesn't say, embarrass people and hurt people because your soul's calling you. That's not what the Arizal's saying. He's saying you find a tikkun in this area. And today, for example, friendship, I can't tell you, because of the driving here and how disastrous it is, I do everything pretty much from this little smartphone. Texting, WhatsApp, communication every Friday. I have 10, 15 people. I said, good Shabbos. You could be friends. When it comes time, for my books and support, my friends, I reach out to them without meeting them, because we have an ongoing friendship that's been developed. So there's so many ways of keeping friends today that we didn't have years ago, where you had to meet people face to face. So a smart person knows that sometimes, and I've seen this also with very wealthy people, philanthropists, they rather just keep the distance and have a pleasant relationship with you in a distant way, and they support you. But they want it to be that way. And you have to be sensitive to that and not overdo it. So I see a lot of good coming out from this breakdown kind of a face-to-face friendship and all that we had 20 years ago, 30 years ago, that we don't have today because communication and has taken over and everything else. So I think this is a very important idea. I mean, it's not an answer for, giving someone an aliyah in a shul because he needs to be out of Torah, right? And he needs to get the aliyah or open the Aron Kodesh or etc. But I recall, you remind me, in Eish Kodesh with the windows, the big windows you guys have there. And so I'm hot most of the time. So I used to sit next to the window and open the window a little because guys behind me and that was acceptable. So I found a way to sit next to the window and have a little of the window open so I got some fresh air in. You try this, you try that. The main thing is to know that, areas that you have displayed weaknesses over years is not mean that you should forget them, but rather embrace them. And the same thing I say in marriage. It's not that you can't live and love someone who has a deficiency. On the contrary, you show how strong you are that you can embrace even that. Rabbi Yaakov Meir Shechter of Yerushalayim, of Meir Shurim, one of the Breslover Manhigim. I think I told you this. Years ago, 20, 30, I forget, I was a Meir Shurim Shabbos and I decided I'm walking into him 3 p.m, everyone's sleeping and, the Lubavitch is snooping around the Meir Shurim. So I asked someone where he lived, they told me, I go up this house, I knock on the door, and comes to the door, Nebuch, a daughter or someone, I didn't know, someone, I imagine, that didn't seem 100%, stable, right? And later I found out that he, at the time, when he married his wife, he knew that she wasn't 100% well, but he made a commitment, and he's been living, and thank Hashem, I think he's probably 85 to 90, all his life, even though he basically probably knew that he has a good chance of having some children that will be that way too. I mean, you can say he's a tzaddik. He might be a tzaddik for other reasons, a Beinoni, but in humanity, he was able, and it's something admirable, he was able to go into a relationship knowing full well that this is going to be a difficulty in different ways throughout his life. But he felt that from on high, he was given a call that this is his tikkun and this is his neshama, so he made the commitment. Now, I'm not saying that we should, that we're ready for this. This is really an avodah, and that's what makes a person like him special to me. It's not how much he shuckles and not how much Likutei Marani learns or teaches. That's nothing. If a person can do that, when they begin their life, they're a special person. Because I know I wouldn't be able to do it. And I know most people wouldn't be able to do it. Okay? So it's embracing the deficiency that's really special. Doesn't mean to say, again, you have to know. There's no one can force you. This has to come from within. And if within you can't, like I said, I couldn't do it. Yaakov Meir did. You don't do it. Because if you do it, it'll be a disaster. You go into a depression and it'll be, you've lost here and you've lost there. You've lost everything. So why go that way? Oh, because you want to show you're macho. You want to show you're a chassid. You want to show you're a special Jew. My friend, there are many other ways to show that you're special and to do. And you have to know your weaknesses. What's that famous Hayom Yom? Just like it's a mitzvah to know your weaknesses, it's even more of a mitzvah to know your strengths. But let's reverse for a second. You surely have to know your weaknesses. The Hayom Yom is emphasizing the chiddush, the novelty is that you should know your strengths. Meaning to say, but it's a given that you have to know your deficiencies. Have a great Shabbos. Shabbos, Parshas Truma. Good Shabbos. We'll see everyone Monday.
Shabbos.
Shabbos.
Oh, yeah.
Bye.
Oh, yeah.